You're listening to the Plain Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carlos Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 202 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and not joining me in the Barn studio this week because, well, let's be honest, I'm not in the Barn studio this week. I am in PTUK HQ Man Cave, surrounded by all my aviation paraphernalia. But joining us and doing all the computer work this evening is my co-host Matt Smith. Hello, Matt.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to just outside the hotel. Where am I? I'm just outside Heathrow, aren't I? I'm in the Hotel Marriott in just off the A4, just outside Windsor. Don't you know, ladies and gentlemen? And yes, so I've brought a mobile studio with me, and I have to just say, I was trying to bring this up before we started, but we were talking about, because Dan Hannington was listening to episode 201, and there was I think one of the news stories, because Nev obviously is a big fan of these wonderful articles where they always get everything right, and we discussed that we'd never come across a 727-800. Oh no, 727 Max, wasn't it?
Max.
That's right. We'd never come across a 727 Max, and I'm delighted to say that Dan Hannington has successfully managed to find a photograph of it, and I think it really does look quite fabulous. So there you are. If you're watching in YouTube, you can see what it is. It's it looks like it might. Is it whiz or wow with that pink? I'm never quite sure. So
I think it's got some issues. I mean, it's going to be an incredibly powerful jet, really, with those engines. I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. I
well
think
done,
it's
Dan.
Absolutely. It is, and they're above they're above the wings as well, which is quite unusual. They're usually hanging underneath, aren't they? It's all very good. It's unusual, yes.
So also joining us this week via the realms of Skype, it's the other awesome co-host of the show, Mr. Neville Bounds.
Hi Carlos, hi everybody, and yeah, great to join you again, and nice that we're doing this on a Friday evening. It's been a bit of a long week again, but yeah, glad that Friday is finally here. So yeah, looking forward to another great show.
I feel your pain there, Nev, definitely.
So it is the 2nd of February 2018. God, we're in February already, guys.
I know.
I know. And it's just gone 7 p.m. in the UK here in the evening. We've got loads of people joining us in the chat room tonight. We've got Liz Piper, Graham Haley. We've got Pilot Pips in the chat room. Oh. Brian Coleman's in the chat room. Mariana, First Officer Mike. We've got Armando Carry On. Hello, Armando. We've got, let me just scroll back up so I don't miss anyone. Here we go. Chris Turnbull, he's also in the chat room. Shorty Crosgrove, Ruben Wells, Tony Kitchen, Glenn Towler. I hope I haven't missed anyone. Have I missed anyone, guys? I hope not.
Oh, I don't know. Don't ask me.
I don't know. But hopefully I haven't missed anyone. But welcome to everyone who's joined us in the live chat room tonight. We've got loads of news stories to get through. And don't forget as well, we've also got our very first instalment of Nev's passenger experience. Any tasters, Nev, to what this is about this week?
No, not really. I thought I'd leave it until the last minute to let you all know. But this was actually recorded this one just before Christmas in the snow. It was so it's very difficult to get to the venue over in London Docklands. But yeah, looking forward to a new series and lots of stuff coming your way this year. So we're going to see if we can top last year's effort with Mel C, so we can get some more celebs on.
Good luck with that, sir. Well, if anyone can do it, you can.
He get the Queen.
Well, that's true. Yes, I am spitting distance from Her Majesty, and I understand she is in residence here at Windsor over the weekend. So maybe I shall pop up for a knock up on the door, just in case.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice to hear from the Queen and see how her flights are on her
private jet.
146.
Yeah, indeed.
Anyway, moving swiftly on. So, like I said, we've got Nev's first MPE for this year, and we've also got some military news, everyone.
Oh,
so,
have we?
Jonathan Warner is now an incredibly happy man.
Oh dear. I didn't get that far down in my show notes, if I'm honest.
That's now reading his show notes, as always.
Yes, of course, absolutely.
Well, so I suppose we better start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Nev.
Yes, ready.
And if you're ready, Matt.
Yes, I'm ready.
Let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story, it's on the bbc.co.uk website. And the headline, Emotional Support Peacock Barred from United Airlines Plane. Obviously, Brian was not on this aircraft at the time. A female traveller was recently barred from taking a large emotional support peacock on board a United Airlines flight. It has emerged. She offered to buy the bird its own ticket, according to travel blog Live and Let Fly. Nevertheless, the airline refused to let the bird board at Newark Airport in New Jersey, saying it did not meet the guidelines due to its weight and size. United says this was explained to the traveller before she arrived at Newark. Pictures of the striking bird and its owner attempting to travel to Los Angeles emerged via the jet set and travel-based talk show. The images show the animal perched on an airport baggage trolley as fellow passengers gaze in shock. After 6 hours at the airport, the exotic bird and its human companions decided to take the road and instead drive across the US. The peacock, reportedly called Dexter, belongs to Brooklyn-based artist Ventenko, who documents its life on social media. She said, "I have never left the house without having at least one person react," Ventenko told a local culture website in 2017. The artist, whose real name is not known, told Bedford and Bowery that the feathery giant really changed my life in a positive way. She originally brought Dexter and a peahen called Etta for an art installation. She later found them a new home from which Etta and her offspring disappeared. The loss affected Dexter's behaviour, and Ventenko came to his rescue after hearing that the bird was housed in a garage. Following a failed stint at an upstate New York farm, Ventenko finally decided to welcome Dexter into her Bushwick loft. Now involved in her photography and performance art, the exotic bird appears to enjoy his New York life. However, he avoids public transportation like the subway because Ventenko doesn't want him to be traumatized. So airlines have allowed some passengers with emotional psychiatric problems to take therapy animals on board with them, but the number of some emotional support animals has been rising in recent years, sparking suggestions that people are abusing the system. In 2014, a woman was escorted off a US Airways flight when her pig, named Hobie defecated and squealed before the plane took off. So I'm going to put this question out to both the hosts then. Given the chance, what particularly emotional support animal would you take on board an aircraft?
Well,
I was just going to say, I mean, I wouldn't. I wouldn't even know where to begin because you just don't know. I mean, probably something like an orangutan or, chimp or something that, is around about the human species, possibly. But
right.
No, I think it's seriously got out of hand, and there seems to be no end to this stuff. So I can
literally hear Captain Nick busy doing backflips at this entire story. I mean, it's just like,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I love my little dog Alfie like you wouldn't believe. If I was going to have any kind of emotional support animal, then it would have to be him. But I know that the last thing, I mean, he is not happy when he's in the car. Goodness knows what he's going to be like if he's on an aeroplane with all that background noise and goodness knows what else. The poor little thing would be shaking to bits, bless him, because he just don't do sort of stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. But I mean, when you're reading that story, I wasn't entirely sure whether the human was emotional support for the peacock or the other way around there, because it's just like, I don't know. It's it's an odd choice of character, and then let's be honest, they're not the quietest of animals. I mean, before you know where you are, you've got a imagine that sort, going on. Like, what on earth is that going to sound like in an aeroplane?
Can I just say, going to the chat room, the chat room is saying First Officer Mike would like a honey badger. Apparently, according to Brian Coleman, Captain Al wanted to bring his elephant. Andrew Wilson wants to bring his emotional support shark. Glenn Towler wants to bring his emotional support panda. Right. Okay. Lane Street has one of the more interesting suggestions. He wants to bring an emotional support Amanda Holden. Ah, right. Yes. The finder of the species. Yes. Philip Davis. Apparently, Philip Davis wants to bring 3 turkeys. Right. Quite why he wants to bring 3 turkeys. And Mariana, a puppy. Liz Piper. Liz wants to bring a polar bear. Right. Okay. I mean, they don't sound the most cuddliest of toys, it has to be said. No. Okay. It's an interesting assortment there of emotional support. Actually, Brian Coleman says that he wants to bring his emotional support Jessica Alba. Right. Okay. I'm noting a bit of a theme here with some of the people in the chat room here. I'm a little bit scared, I won't lie. Anyway. We're going to move on to story number 2. Matt, this one is for you. Okay, yes, this is on the express.co.uk, which is where Nev always gets all of his aviation-related news, obviously. Yeah. And the headline is, Ryanair allows union to represent pilots. Will this affect cheap flights in the UK? So Ryanair has allowed a union to represent their British pilots, meaning that they will be able to negotiate for better working conditions. It means UK pilots can ask for more pay, better hours and more holiday. The changes affect 600 pilots, which makes up a quarter of all Ryanair pilots across Europe. BALPA will not represent the pilots, and the British Airline Pilots Association has signed a voluntary trade union recognition agreement. So Ryanair has previously been reluctant to deal with unions. Owner Michael O'Leary once said, "Hell will freeze over," before the company recognised the need for such things. It's obviously got a little bit chilly down there as of this week. However, now the company has revealed its pilots will be represented by the union and given a 20% pay rise. BALPA's General Secretary Brian Strutton said, "Given Ryanair's previous hostility towards unions, today's agreement is very much a historic one." And I don't think anybody disagrees with us there. While we're initially sceptical about Ryanair's sincerity in offering recognition to us and other unions, our conversations and meetings with them have shown that they are genuine in wanting a constructive trade union relationship. I am hopeful that this is the beginning of a strong and mutually beneficial relationship between BALPA and Ryanair, and I urge Ryanair to agree deals with pilots' unions in other countries and with cabin crew unions. Ryanair recently brought into effect its new luggage restrictions. Passengers who take hand luggage could now face extra charging if they haven't realised that the rules have changed. So, I mean, we covered sort of like variants of this story before. I don't know. I mean, it's I can't help but feel, but maybe recognising the unions is a start maybe to trying to retain their pilots, because I mean it's been obviously in the news a lot that both cabin crew and pilots are leaving like in droves, you know, for rival airlines, and maybe this is one way of trying to sort of, you know, stop the rot, for want of a better word.
I think it had to happen, didn't it? Because there was a high possibility there was going to be some serious disruption. I mean, they've already had some at the back end of last year with pilot hours and this kind of thing, but there was going to be some serious disruption this year, I think, if they had not sorted something out. So I think, although it's a first step, there's probably some way to go, and this would be a new situation for them. But it's probably got to be a good thing, and so I think that will be ultimately good for the passengers as well.
Absolutely, indeed. How do you feel, though? Do you think it's likely that we are going to see fares rise, though, as a result of this? I mean, do you think it'll have any impact on the low-cost fares?
I don't know. I'm sorry, Carlos. I doubt it somehow. I mean, this it's one of those things that union operations in the pilot fraternity has been around for a very long time, and I think there was an inevitability about this, wasn't there? And I can't really see it's going to have a serious effect on.
And of course, let's not forget. I mean, EasyJet. I'm using, obviously. Let's mention their direct rivals. They have recognised unions from the outset, and their prices are very comparable, if not certainly on a level par, with Ryanair. And they recognise unions. And they haven't got people leaving in droves. As that. So as you say, perhaps they're worrying over nothing essentially.
Remember as well, the British Airline Pilots Association, or BALPA, they represent over 75% of all professional fixed-wing pilots, helicopter and aircrew based in the UK. So they're, it's a good association to be in if you're in a pilot profession.
Yeah, no, fair point. Fair point.
So, Nev, the next story is all for you.
This is on the Australian Business Traveller website, and it's a BA story, which we always like, of course. And it says that if you're travelling on one of 3 British Airways Boeing 747s currently fitted with in-flight internet, BA and credit card company Visa are now offering 60 minutes of free connectivity above the clouds. The promotion, which BA says runs for a limited time, and that's all the information they have right now, gives you 1 hour on the basic browse package, which normally costs £4.99 for web, email and social media, but not video streaming. If that whets your appetite and you want more time online, you can plonk down £10.99 for 4 hours or £14.99 for a flight pass to stay online for the length of your entire journey. If more speed is what you need, the faster stream service kicks off at £7.99 for 1 hour, with 4 hours priced at £17.99 and a flight pass at £23.99. BA says it's working hard to get over 100 jets in its long-range international fleet kitted out with Wi-Fi over the coming years, with the Boeing 747 jumbo jets, 777-300ERs, 787 Dreamliners, and from 2019 the new Airbus A350-1000. They all rely on the latest PTUK broadband satellite technology from GoGo, which is the same system being used by Virgin Australia. Now, my experience of in-flight internet has been very expensive and just not a very good experience. When I went on United to Washington last year, it was just awful. And I don't know what they're going to be doing for improving things, but it just didn't seem very good value for money. And I really could have waited until I got to the other end. But I thought I'd try it out.
When I went to Pittsburgh, actually, I had, I was, well, in fact, most of you will probably know, you and Carlos will certainly know, when we went to Pittsburgh, and I was actually able to WhatsApp people while I was in the air, and I have to say I think it depended a bit on what you were using it. I mean, if I was trying to send videos and stuff, then maybe not, but it was pretty good. I mean, and I think I got an hour's worth of free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I think where I went wrong was trying to download a 2-hour 4K movie. Perhaps I shouldn't have been doing that.
Perhaps that was indeed the issue.
But these prices, though, guys, I mean, if BA were to offer a really, really good quality service, speed service, Wi-Fi service on the aircraft, these prices aren't hideous, really.
No,
if you were on business and you needed access to the internet, to either emails or anything like that, these prices, they're not bank breakers.
No, although I do agree with Matt Caton in the chat room, who says, to be honest, I like the fact I can turn my phone off for 10 hours.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He has a point.
He does have a point.
There,
yeah,
totally.
And also,
but
I think
actually, I was going to say, Andrew Wilson does make also a very valid point as well, that if he had the Wi-Fi on board the aircraft, he'd only need to have Flight Radar 24 on.
Yes.
Right, of course, yes. What tracking your own aircraft while you're in the air? Right, okay, fair enough. I think we're a long way away from the service being good enough that you could just sort of use it, as if. I think it's going to be a long time before you can literally sit there on the aeroplane and say watch something off Netflix. I think we're a little way away from that being possible, especially especially in rural communities. It's all BT can do it, let alone offering those kind of facilities in the air. But I dare say it'll come. I don't think it will be long before those sort of things are possible.
Actually, let's not forget, guys, that one of the suggestions that we had at the 200th show from the listeners who were there was that for our 300th show that we were going to do a live broadcast from on board an aircraft.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to put the satellite though, Carlos. That's the issue. It's just like that's going to alter the dynamics of the aircraft quite dramatically, I think. No? Okay.
Okay. So moving on to the next story. And this one is another story just for Brian Coleman. And this one's on the independent.co.uk, very Polish paper. And the headline, United Airlines accepts a man's 19-year-old paper plane ticket he found under his bed. Yes, that's what I just said. So United Airlines has agreed to honour a ticket issued to a man nearly 20 years ago after he found it in a box under his bed. John Walker from Greensboro discovered the 19-year-old airline ticket last month. It was for a flight from Nashville to Sacramento on the 31st of December 1998. It was purchased in December to fly to Sacramento for my brother-in-law's wedding, which was on the 2nd of January 1999, Walker told WFMY2, and he didn't get to go. He requested a refund at the time, and in March 1999 was sent a letter from United saying that although the ticket was non-refundable, the value could be used towards a future flight. He put it away because at that point he didn't have any plans to travel, said Walker, and he completely forgot he got the ticket. He only discovered the ticket when looking for something else. Walker opened the box and went through it, and discovering the letter from United at the bottom. As it said, the conditions were that domestic, wholly unused, non-refundable tickets can forever be applied towards the purchase of another domestic non-refundable ticket for the customer named on the ticket. So Walker decided to find out if forever would still apply. Several attempts to get an answer from the airline's customer service department led nowhere. No one knew what to do with a paper ticket because by this time the paper tickets were long gone, he said. They hadn't been issued for around 10 or 12 years. He decided to send him a message on Twitter, and although the letter wasn't legally binding, an agent told him that when United went bankrupt in 2010, they were absolved of all outstanding debts, including forever tickets. The airline decided to honour it anyway. According to Walker, the agent said his situation was so unique that the airline would uphold the voucher. He said, "I think it was just good customer service on their part," Walker said. He is still waiting for receipt of the $378 voucher, which is now technically valued, with today's current inflation rates, at $571.60. So, has anyone got any old tickets laying under their sofa? Or,
no, I haven't. Although I did quite like the old tickets. I must say there was something nice, wasn't there, about getting them through the post or picking them up from your travel agent. It was just something to look forward to. And now it's just an app on your phone, which, although it's far more efficient in many respects, it's just not as nice, is it?
Yeah, it's difficult to get excited about an app, isn't it? It's very difficult to sort of get all carried away and think, oh yeah, you know, I'm about to go somewhere amazing here. Do you know what I mean?
And because don't forget, people for many years ago, for some people, keeping their stub or their airline ticket was a memory of a holiday.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Yeah, I don't know. So, I feel it. Yeah, as you say, it's in some respects it's a shame we've lost some of the old nostalgia, haven't we? Really, but
yes,
there we
absolutely.
go.
So the next story, Matt, is all for you.
Yes, and a rare error on Carlos's part to give me a picture story or a video story when I'm the one reading it out. But there we are. We'll let it go.
You can play it out in a bit.
Yeah, okay. So it's the mirror.co.uk is the website. And the headline, it's a story that we've covered before, unfortunately. Baggage handlers for Ryanair and EasyJet flights caught on camera, casually tossing suitcases as one misses the conveyor belt. So baggage staff for EasyJet and Ryanair flights have been caught casually tossing passengers' luggage on and off planes. Passengers filmed the workers in the act on 2 separate occasions on different flights to highlight the issue for fellow flyers. In the first footage taken from a flight that departed from Bristol, baggage handlers can be seen grabbing suitcases and throwing them onto the back of a truck at the flight's destination. In a separate clip, suitcases can be seen loaded onto a conveyor belt at Krakow Airport and tumbling off onto the floor. It's a bit of a funny story. So Ian Jarvis, a chartered accountant from Worcester, took his video after flying from Bristol on December the 28th. He posted it online a month later after not getting a response from his complaints. In his post, he wrote, "I want to see what happens to your luggage at Bristol Airport. Watch this video taken on the 28th of December 2017 of Swissport staff in action. I made a complaint a month ago and had no response at all from Swissport and EasyJet," which is a little bit harsh. I'm going to play the little video for you now. I must say, this is not really how. This is merely for me simply an advert for making sure that you always have carry-on only, frankly. So yeah, here we go. So we're going to play the video now. Here we go. So if you're watching on or listening on the audio podcast, then make sure you take yourself to the Mirror website and search for Ryanair EasyJet baggage, and you'll see exactly what's happening. So in this first video here, they're just casually throwing away. There's nothing breakable in those bags. I'd like to think that your cases were being better treated than is what we're witnessing here.
It's shocking, honestly. When I saw this story and I played the video, if you were that person on that flight and you're watching, oh, there's my case coming down the conveyor, and then seeing it lobbed, and I mean lobbed. I don't mean it was lobbed into someone else's suitcase. It's. Especially at that time of the year, bear in mind this was taken just after Christmas. So, these could be people returning from holidays
from away with Christmas
where they
presents,
see family, with presents and stuff in their cases. And I just, it baffles the mind.
I mean, I think there should be an Olympic event which features this, because obviously they're doing pretty well with it. So maybe we could do that in the Olympic Games, the baggage handlers tossing.
Do you think
event?
Again, that's what she said. Is there? Realistically though, with most suitcases this day and age, I mean, they aren't. I'm trying to play a little bit devil's advocate here, I suppose. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't want my suitcases to be treated that way. But in fairness, they're not standing on them. They're not crunching them underfoot or anything like that. I mean, presumably your average suitcase is going to protect your stuff from being thrown. Don't get me wrong, if you've got a Ming vase in there, it's ruined. But most people aren't carrying such things. I mean, is that as abuse as such? I don't know.
Well, Brian Coleman says in the chat room that sadly this is normal baggage behaviour in the US. He sees it all the time.
Right. Okay. I suppose the moral of this story is make sure that you're always carrying non-valuable goods and a decent suitcase so that it can withstand such treatment. I guess it's not the most glamorous job in the world, but I suppose we'd all like to think that they're being.
Actually, Matt Caton, our beer producer, in the chat room, has said that if you were moving 2,000 suitcases a day, would you be gentle?
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. As I say, I think perhaps maybe we should just make sure that everything's all stacked properly. Make sure that the case is well protected, and maybe do you think one of these hard suitcases will make any difference?
Well, watching videos like that is the reason why I always pack my camera equipment in my hand luggage.
In your hand luggage, yes. Good point. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Nev?
The thing is, it's a question of whether you spend a lot of money on your expensive Samsonite suitcase or whatever manufacturer you've got. Yeah. You think it's going to last, 5, 6, 7 years maybe, but with that sort of treatment, it's not going to last very long. So I tend to buy probably low quality, but low price suitcases, certainly, so that they last me 2 or 3 years, and I pay, I don't know, probably £40, not even that sometimes. Yeah.
I mean,
my
I
local
bought
market just to get a new one.
I bought a hard suitcase before I went to New York, actually, mainly because we want to take some brochures and stuff out there as well. So I knew I needed something with wheels because I knew it was going to be sort of right on its limit, if you like, for the allowance. And I must admit, I bought one from Tesco's that was a Tesco's own brand, and it's been an absolutely brilliant suitcase. But it has got this hard skin again, so you sort of feel that if because you sort of feel that maybe it has been cared for slightly better. Because when we went out to Pittsburgh, obviously we took quite a lot of tech stuff between you and I, didn't we, Nev? So we took quite a lot of stuff in there, and I didn't have a hard suitcase, and I've never been so terrified when I saw because I had a lime green suitcase, mainly because I'm one of those where I like it to be as loud as possible so that I can spot it on the conveyor belt when it's going round. And when it came out where it was basically brown, not lime green, when it came out of the conveyor belt, I must admit I was a bit like, oh, I hope everything in there is okay. So it's had a bit of a rough journey.
Liz Piper's just said in the chat room, don't forget last week we had that story with the guy with the hardcore suitcase.
Oh, yes.
Is it a £600 suitcase?
Yeah, with a big hole in it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
indeed. That's a good
point.
So,
moving on to the next story, Mr. Bounds.
Yeah, this is on the AIN online, and it's all about the 787-10 from Boeing. And it says that this year's Singapore Air Show heralds the final stages of the Rolls-Royce Trent 1010 powered Boeing 787-10 service entry effort as the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore prepares validation of the US FAA's amended type certificate for operation with launch customer Singapore Airlines in the second quarter of the year.
Easy for you to say.
Yes. There's no punctuation at all in those 5 lines of text, is there? But issued on January the 22nd, the FAA award capped a certification program involving 3 flight test airplanes, 2 powered by Rolls-Royce Trent 1010s and 1 by GE NX-1Bs that together flew a total of more than 900 hours. Boeing expects certification of the GE-powered 787-10 in time for scheduled first delivery to United Airlines in the second half of the year. And speaking with AIN just ahead of the show, Boeing 787 Chief Project Engineer Bob Whittington explained that Boeing had originally planned to use 4 test airplanes in the program, but as the 787-10's commonality with its smaller sibling, the 787-9, became more and more apparent during the early stages of design, so did the lack of a need for much of the testing to demonstrate the differences between the 2 models. The -10 and -9 used 95% common part numbers, not only reducing the number of test hours needed for the -10, but undoubtedly aiding workflow once full-scale production of the latest Dreamliner begins in North Charleston, South Carolina. Apart from its 18-foot stretch, the only visual obvious difference between the -9 and -10 lies in the -10's semi-levered main landing gear, leaving only some minor structural reinforcements in the fuselage and some systems modifications to account for the bigger cabin. Boeing arrived at the 18-foot stretch by inserting 5 frames in front of the wing and 4 frames after the wing, allowing for the addition of 40 passenger seats and a total capacity of 330 in a 2-class layout. Using exactly the same wing as the -9, the -10's only other significant difference involved localized strengthening of the fuselage, an increase of the capability of the environmental control system, the ECS, and enough cargo space for 1 more pallet or 2 extra LD3 containers in both the forward and aft holds. Whilst maximum landing weight increases by £20,000 to £445,000 and maximum zero fuel weight jumps £25,000 to £425,000, maximum takeoff weight remains unchanged at £560,000, with the range decreased to 6,430 nautical miles from 7,635 nautical miles. And completing function and reliability trials and ECS testing ahead of schedule, the 3rd airplane, designated ZC002 finished testing first and revealed no surprises since its first flight during the summer. It actually performs better than expected, said Whittington. And by the time Whittington spoke with AIN on January the 5th, the first airplane, the Trent 1010 powered ZC001, had completed all but a final stage of stability and control software validation, performing crosswind landings and tailwind takeoffs in Newfoundland. Incorporating technologies from the Trent XWB and Advance engine, including a rising line compressor and three-stage bladed disc at the front of the high pressure compressor. The Trent 1010 promised a 3% fuel burn advantage over the Trent 1000, the original Rolls option for the Dash 8 and Dash 9. And entering service with an Air New Zealand Dash 9 and a Scoot Dash 8 last November, the Trent 1010 has not delivered quite the fuel burn promised fuel burn performance Rolls promised. Whittington said Boeing is awaiting a new software package to recoup the less than 1% deficiency by mid-year. However, in the 787-10, Boeing's aerodynamic measurements showed roughly 1% better than expected drag coefficient improvement, thereby countering the slight deficiency experienced in the Trent 1010 powered Dash 8 and Dash 9. Just shows you, doesn't it, how much a little bit of fuel burn makes just a huge difference across the fleet and all those thousands of nautical miles being flown. So,
Nev, I think a little round of applause, please. That was a horribly hard story to read. Well done, sir. I'm very impressed.
Well, yes, absolutely. These stories are not written to be read out.
No, they're not really.
Written to be read silently to yourself. Yes. And yes, they didn't overdo the punctuation.
No, indeed. And can I recommend you go and grab yourself a beer immediately as a reward for such thing? Actually, while we are talking about beer, can I just say, as we have got Matt Caton in the chat room, your beer, mate, at our 200th was absolutely delicious. And I'm not a big sort of IPA or beer fan. And that was a glorious, glorious bottle, it has to be said. You should do more of that, please. There's one left? Yeah, let me guess.
I've got one bottle downstairs at PTUK HQ of the beer.
I'm very jealous.
It could be a prize for later on this year.
How on earth are you going to post it to someone? I don't know what to do with that.
Incredibly careful.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. So please feel free to make some more of that beer. Ideally in time for our summer meetup that, gents, I think we need to start planning at some point very soon. But yes, well done, Nev. Well done.
I'll say, going back to that story, Nev, the guys at Dubai, where the Dash 10 was on show last year, I couldn't interview them because their particular PA person wasn't with them. But I had a good chat with them, and they were incredibly enthusiastic about the whole Dash 10 program and how it was progressing and how how the ergonomics of the aircraft and everything were working. So yeah, it looked stunning. For sure, and it will be nice to see whether BA pick up any of these later on. It's a very nice looking aircraft, isn't it? I think that stretch that they've done to it makes the ergonomics and everything look just absolutely spot on. So, and if they can fill the seats, it was extra 40 seats they said, didn't they? So that could be really good. But no, I think it's a very important addition to the range, and especially if they're getting the fuel consumption figures that they want or close to it, I think it's going to be an absolute winner. Yeah,
agreed.
So next story, and this one is on a rather interesting site. This is the japantimes.co.jp, and for those of you who live in and around airports will know that airports do have issues in some areas with birds, and birds are never a good thing to have flying around when aircraft are involved, as Sully found out. But this story then, and the headline is Raptors guarding Mexico City's airport to ward off bird strikes. So Mexico City, this is based in, far from the crowds of passengers, lines and passport control, Madison spreads his wings on the side of a runway at Mexico City's international airport, the busiest in Latin America. He's one of several peregrine falcons deployed to prevent bird strikes, a hazardous collision between birds and planes that can have dangerous and even catastrophic consequences. Don't forget, in 2009, like I said, for instance, a US Airways jet had to ditch in the Hudson River in New York after a flock of birds took out its engines. In January this year, a Mexico-bound KLM flight made an emergency landing after hitting birds on takeoff in the Netherlands. It's dangerous, and birds don't mix with aircraft. They can hit the turbines and cause damage. Oscar Chavez, a 26-year-old who is one of the biologists handling the falcons, told AFP. Each day, Madison and another peregrine falcon named Isel, is it Isel? On duty at the airport, which sees 44 million passengers pass through each year. The other birds realise there is a predator around and they disappear, quite rightly too, said Naili who's in charge of the animals at the terminal. Getting Madison ready to fly requires a daily procedure that Chavez said was like a ritual, attaching a tracking tag onto his leg while dangling quail meat to distract him. Depending on the weather, Madison can soar aloft for 2 hours at a time. Like raptors, he likes to float in warm air currents while scanning below for targets. These days, however, the days in Mexico's capital are cooler, limiting his forays. Still, the goal is being met and no other birds are spotted in the vicinity. Swallows, kestrels and kites are among the bird species that Madison and Isel like to hunt. Before 2014, airport authorities used raptors to swoop down and kill their prey as a way of keeping runways clear. But now the falcons are trained to fly and keep other birds away by their threatening silhouette in the sky. That way, biologists avoid protected species being ripped apart by the falcons and beaks and claws. Ooh, if that ever happens, we could get fined by the environmental agencies, Fjord said. The new method also has an advantage in that the falcons are not gorging on prey, which would result in them becoming too setted and want to fly aloft again. Peregrine falcons are not the only birds of prey deployed at the airport. A blue-grey Aplomodo falcon, there we go, called Panchito, and 3 Harris hawks also fly as sentinels over the tarmac. One of the hawks is named Loca, crazy in English because of her aggressive nature. Because they fly low over the carnivorous birds, they can be used close to boarding halls where there are more plane movements. But there are other less spectacular animals at work too. The team of biologists can also call on dogs trained to chase away birds from the ground between runways. And insect populations in the area are kept in check through chemical products, robbing the nuisance birds of a source of food. At the end of the day, the animals, feathered and furred, are ushered into a hangar next to the airport for a night's rest. In the meantime, the buzzing facility nearby keeps on with its frantic activity. I have to say, this is quite shall we say, environmentally friendly way of keeping birds away from airports, guys?
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, most of the airports, I know Norwich Airport near us uses a bird scaring vehicle, I think, to scare away the birds there, as do, I think, Heathrow, I think. Perhaps Adam could tell us what's going on there, but yeah.
Yeah, it's as you say in the story though, it's not an uncommon method of crowd control, shall we say, for keeping the birds away, really. So it's nice to know that sometimes, you know, nature is the best way to deal with these things, isn't it? Anyway, on to the next story. This is on the CBNC website, and the headline is "Consumer shopping sprees are giving new life to the Boeing 747." So obviously we've been running stories recently where we're seeing the 747 going out of service as far as US and UK carriers are concerned. But yeah, as I say, this is bringing them a new lease of life. Passengers are having a tougher time finding a seat on the Boeing 747 these days, but that doesn't mean that their stuff won't be hitching a ride on the original jumbo jet. UPS on Thursday announced it was doubling its order for Boeing 747 freighters, giving a burst of life to the jumbo jet that several passenger airlines have retired in favour of more fuel-efficient aircraft. In mid-2016, Boeing said that it was considering ending production of the 747s as airlines plan to phase the planes, famous for their humped fuselages out of their fleets, but UPS's affinity for them is helping keep the planes alive, even if they are a tiny portion of Boeing's order book of more than 5,800 planes. UPS said that it ordered 14 additional 747-8s worth around 5.65 billion at list prices. Obviously they've not paid anywhere near that for them, bringing its total to 28, counting for jumbos it ordered in 2016. The company also ordered 4 new Boeing 767s worth $848.8 million at current list prices. Consumer impatience and a seemingly insatiable appetite for promptly delivering goods are boosting air freight rates and in some cases making space aboard airplanes very scarce. It's a boon for both traditional cargo and package delivery companies as they rush to get their packages from Amazon and other retailers carrying products from carrying anything from salmon to pharmaceuticals to smartphones to consumers as fast as possible. Air freight demand rose by 9% in 2017 from a year earlier, the fastest clip since 2010, the International Air Transport Association said this week. Our intra-US next day and deferred air shipments are expanding to record levels, and UPS's international segment has produced 4 consecutive quarters of double-digit export shipment growth, said David Apney, who is the chairman and CEO of UPS. Now, actually, I can add to this story because I know, as you know, recently I was in New York for a trade show for the company that I work for, and I literally could not believe that we were able to, because we were sort of trying to plan our logistics obviously months in advance, and when we were looking at it, because of the weights that we were talking about, they were significant but they weren't that massive. It was actually far cheaper and ridiculously fast to get our stuff out by UPS, where it basically went to Stansted, got on a plane and then went to Newark, I think it is, which is where it's either New York or JFK or somewhere, wherever it is that they land in New York. And it was overnight. It actually left. So from our point of view, bearing in mind we wanted it on the Wednesday, and it left the UK Tuesday 2 p.m. and it arrived in our hotel Wednesday morning.
That is remarkable, isn't it?
It is
really
genuinely
good.
remarkable,
Really good.
and this is one of the things, and I think, as I say, I'm using that really as a way of backing up this story, because it is very much what's occurring is it's just like the overnight. I mean, I almost didn't believe them. I mean, we had a backup plan because we were so convinced that it wasn't going to work, this crazy idea that they were going to be able to do it overnight, and it's just incredible. Absolutely incredible that it took less time for the stuff to get to our hotel than it took us to get to our hotel.
Yeah.
But this is great news, I think, for Boeing, because I think they were, Boeing got to the stage where the orders had completely nearly enough dropped off for the Dash 8s. The whole production line, the 747 production line, has slowed right down. And with UPS ordering 14 additional aircraft, the Dash 8s, it's not only is it obviously good news for Boeing, but it's also good news for the workers. It keeps people in jobs, which is the most important.
I must say, I'm almost convinced actually that we're never going to ever see a time where the 747 isn't still in the air in some form. I really do believe that now. I really am sort of almost convinced that this airline will continue to fly in some form or another till long after we're not here.
I mean, if they stop producing it today, I'm sure that the 747-8s and other variants will still be going in 35 years' time. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, you look how long the 747s lasted. The original, even the Dash 400s, the sort of the newer versions, and these Dash 8s have only just come out in the last few years, and if they have the same length of service that their older versions have had, then they'll go on, as you said, now forever. Bear in mind the Dash 8s. Obviously, there's more of these in the freighter version. They are used in passenger versions. Lufthansa have got some in passenger versions, and also Korean Air as well are also a customer of the passenger version of these. And I think, if I'm right, I come up with a Cathay may have some passenger ones. I'm not sure, but Lufthansa and Korean Air definitely.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the next story, and who is this one? I can't remember. I've lost my space now.
Probably mine, I think.
Yeah,
is that yours, Nev?
Yeah, it's Nev's go.
On the CNN Tech section of their website, and it's all about Airbus's flying car, which takes to the skies for the first time. Airbus took one big leap toward bringing a flying taxi to the public, flying its prototype Vahana aircraft for the first time. Airbus said its full-scale aircraft made 2 short flights on Wednesday. The self-piloted aircraft climbed 16 feet before successfully returning to the ground after the 53-second trip. Well, don't overdo it, lads.
No, absolutely.
The Vahana flew again on Thursday, the company said in a statement. The test flights took place at the Pendleton Unmanned Aerial Systems Range in Oregon. The 20.3-foot long and 18.7-foot wide Vahana is designed to take off and land vertically in a small area. It has helicopter-like struts and 2 sets of tilting wings, each with 4 electric motors. There's room for a passenger under a canopy that retracts like a motorcycle helmet visor. The project is part of Airbus's expansion into new flying technologies through its Silicon Valley unit, A cubed, which is A with a little 3 at the top. Unlike the slow and years-long process of designing, building and testing Airbus's airliners, Vahana's flight comes just in 24 months after A cube's founding. In just under 2 years, Vahana took a concept sketch on a napkin and built a full-scale self-piloted aircraft that has successfully completed its first flight, said Zach Lovering, who's the project executive of Vahana. Future tests will further validate the company's technology, and the prototype will eventually test the transition from hovering a few feet off the ground to forward flight. Vahana has to master that transition if it wants to fly passengers from the rooftops of skyscrapers in crowded cities. That statement is so obvious it's not even worth saying, isn't it, really? But anyway, Vahana executives have said they hope to make a more refined version of Vahana ready to sell in 2020. Our goal is to democratize personal flight by leveraging the latest technologies such as electric propulsion, energy storage and machine vision, said Lovering in a Medium post about the first flights. Uber's Elevate project cited the Vahana project as a possible candidate to move the company beyond ground transportation and transform how people get around cities. Airbus's chief rival Boeing is also rapidly advancing technology for future air taxis. The aerospace giant last year acquired Aurora Flight Sciences, a maker of automated drones and aviation parts. So when you dial up your Uber app on your phone, you might get one of these turn up.
You never know. I mean, I'd like to think, in an ideal world, of course, there is this assumption that, of course, traffic will be less of an issue if you're not on the roads. I mean, it could be a great way to get into and out of London. Per se, but whether air traffic control are going to enjoy having to try and negotiate lots of very inexperienced pilots or not is another question, perhaps, that we should throw at Adam. But there we are.
Yeah, well, I just imagine there's plenty of dash cam footage, isn't there, on YouTube of,
true.
Of bad driving.
True,
so
that is very true. That is true. Yeah.
Sorry, Carlos.
I was just going to say, with some of the roads that we have in our area here, Matt will know that something like this would make for quite an excellent idea, I think.
It'd certainly be less bumpy, because turbulence is not great, let's be honest, but it's better than the roads that we have to travel back and forth into the middle of the country on, it has to be said.
Brian Coleman knows about those roads very well, I think. Yeah,
it's fair to say it's fair to say we live in a rural community, does it not?
Anyway, so moving on to the next story, and it's another Airbus story, especially for all our Airbus fans. This one is on the money.cnn.com website, and the headline: Airbus debuts longest range single aisle jet. So this story came online just early this week, and I saw the video. It's actually online of this. It was really good. Airbus has debuted its much-anticipated Airbus A321LR, long range, the world's longest range jet with a single aisle, currently in production. The plane took its maiden flight Wednesday from the European plane makers factory in Hamburg, Germany. LR, as I said, stands for longer range. The plane can fly for 4,000 nautical miles, or about 8 hours of flying before it needs to refuel. It's designed for transatlantic routes, as airlines want to fly non-stop to and from smaller cities that don't have the demand for big twin-aisle jets. Airlines like JetBlue Airways said it's studying whether to buy the A321LR as part of a strategy to potentially expand its service to Europe. Airbus said Wednesday it has amassed more than 1,900 orders for the A321neo and its longer range model from more than 50 customers. First delivery of the jets to begin later in 2018, following about 100 hours of airborne tests over the coming months. The first operator has not yet been disclosed, but airlines like low-cost carrier Norwegian Air Shuttle, Air Transat in Canada and Ireland's Aer Lingus have committed to the plane. Airbus has made small modifications to its A320neo to create the A321LR. It has as many as 3 additional fuel tanks that can carry around 7,700 pounds of additional fuel, or passengers and their bags. The arrival of the A321LR is part of an escalating fight between Airbus and its American rival Boeing over what plane makers have dubbed the middle of the market. With the A321LR, Airbus says it has captured a solid 80% of market for flights that don't need a long-range jet but are too busy for a single-aisle aircraft. Boeing, meanwhile, is still pondering plans for its first new jetliner since 2011. The jet is dryly called the new mid-market airplane, but it has been dubbed the Boeing 797 by prospective customers. The 797 is a twin-aisle airplane that could seat between 225 and 270 passengers for flights of up to 5,200 nautical miles, or just over 10 hours. The jet will be tailored to serve congested airports on routes such as New York to Los Angeles. Like the A321LR, the Boeing plane should also be efficient enough to serve medium-range flights connecting the United States to smaller European cities. The jet would fill the gap between Boeing's single-aisle 737 workhorse and its advanced long-range 787. Boeing hasn't given the green light to build the 797 and would have to spend at least $10 billion to $15 billion to bring it to market. So a vast sum of money, which is more than Airbus is spending to create the lightly upgraded A321LR. So Boeing will need to charge a premium price to earn back its investment as it battles the A321. So the A321 then, like I said, there is a great video of this being tested on YouTube, actually, which I watched earlier this week. And it does look quite nice, actually. They've made some quite nice little tiny changes, not massive changes, to the A321. But obviously with these extra fuel tanks, it's going to be able to fly a lot further for a lot longer. Matt, this would probably have benefited you on your New York trip last year.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Or actually, no, your Pittsburgh trip, actually, it would have probably benefited you as well.
Oh, what, because it wasn't a 757?
Yeah.
Long and short of it. That's where the end's it anyway. Yeah, on to the next story. This is on a great magazine. This is on the flyingmag.com website. And the headline is Boeing invests in next generation battery technology. So we're looking at the future at the moment. And basically the story goes, a major stumbling block into the development of a practical electric flying vehicle is battery technology, which is currently plagued by energy sources that weigh too much and produce too little power. This week, Boeing's Horizon X Ventures took a step into battery development for the aerospace giant when it announced its first investment in an energy storage company, Berkeley, California-based Qberg. The Berkeley startup was created by former Stanford University researchers developing next-generation battery technology for potential aerospace and industrial applications. Since it was founded nearly 3 years ago, Qberg has developed an advanced battery cell designed as a drop-in solution on the existing large-scale battery manufacturing processes. The Kuberg system combines a lithium metal anode, proprietary electrolyte and high-voltage cathode to achieve high energy density and thermal durability. Since April 2015, Kuberg has grown with several rounds of financing and grant funding and signed a multi-million-dollar joint development agreement with an industrial battery manufacturer. So it's a very, very exciting story. Actually, it's something that I'm a big fan of. I mean, I would love an electric car. I know I'm probably a little bit controversial by saying that, but the one thing that is an issue with the cars is range. And you can't put any more capacity in there because you reach that point where the weight is so great that you're not gaining anything more by it. So I mean, this is really exciting to be able to get an aircraft where in the air that using just battery power because they've mastered that technology. I mean, that's really what's holding us back at the moment, isn't it? Getting these batteries right. But anyway, Kuberg's battery technology has some of the highest energy density we've seen in the marketplace, and its unique chemistries could prove to be safe, stable solution for future electric air transportation, said Steve Norland, who's the Vice President of Boeing's Horizon X. The investment team previously announced an investment in another startup, Xenom Aero, a company developing hybrid to electric aircraft. It is, as I say, very much a story of the future, but I do think, the only trouble is, I think, is with all of these things is actually you've still got to we've still got to generate the power somehow. This is all very well getting it so that everything runs on batteries and stuff, but we still don't have the capacity to generate the electricity without using coal and nuclear and all that kind of thing. There are still many stumbling blocks in regard to this, but it is nevertheless an exciting development.
I think we're a long way off to have electric powered aircraft, but obviously battery technology has got to move on quite substantially before we'll see large passenger aircraft in the sky. Nev?
Yeah, I agree. And if you look at how long it's taken to get battery technology from where it was, so we used to use those big nickel cadmium batteries for our camcorders and all the rest of it. You can remember ages ago, and if you didn't fully discharge them before you recharged them, they ended up with some memory going on there. Now we've got lithium-ion batteries, and we've got thermal runaway problems and potential fires and this kind of stuff. So battery technology, I think, is a difficult area for technology in general terms, in terms of the speed at which the charging is done, and also the demands on it and the loads that will be put on as well. But this is an encouraging sign. I think we will, one of these days, maybe not in our lifetime, but one of these days we'll actually have very, very good battery technology, and we'll have wondered what all the fuss is about. But I just think it takes a long time to develop this stuff.
Agreed, very much so.
So the last story in the commercial news segment, Nev, is yours, and this has got some pictures which apparently shouldn't have come out until later on this week, or later on next week.
Yes, interesting, isn't it? And this is on the Flight Global website. And images of a new Lufthansa livery have surfaced online days before the expected official unveiling at an event the airline is hosting on the 7th of February. So that's over a week away. Posted on the aeronews.ro Facebook page, the images show a conservative change to the German flag carrier's colour scheme. Whilst the stylised bird remains in place, its yellow surround has disappeared. In another shift from the previous design, the tail's dark blue paint job extends over the fuselage. The word Lufthansa on the forward fuselage looks to be largely unchanged. The new livery appears on a Boeing 747-8. And these pictures were posted on Twitter by journalist Andreas Spaeth, show group chief executive Carsten Poor, displaying the livery on a tablet computer. And Lufthansa executives are in Cape Town for a conference on African aviation. And the airline's 7th of February event is entitled Explore the New and takes place in Frankfurt. But Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly the story of the century, is it? But yeah, there's definitely some subtle changes there. I wonder how these pictures got leaked. But that's the thing about electronic communication.
Indeed, I seem to remember a rather amusing story. A rather amusing story that I think that followed this, because I saw a headline to this, and it's error yellow cartridge requires replacement error. It was sort of like one of those where they just sort of done away with the yellow.
Put out to the chat room to see exactly what the chat room thinks about Lufthansa's new livery. Glenn Towler says he hates it.
Okay.
Flyboy1 says he feels it's a copy of the Air New Zealand livery.
Oh, yeah.
Brian Coleman says they don't like colour at Lufthansa any longer.
No.
Richard Adams says looks like tea.
Oh, okay.
Green tea.
Perhaps he means his tea is ready and he's going to have to leave the
it looks like
the show.
Perhaps he says, perhaps the tea is ready.
Yeah,
Glenn Towler says it's worse than the Air Canada new livery. But,
very good.
Yeah, it's obviously this has not gone down too well with our current chat room members.
Indeed. Oh well.
I mean, I don't mind it. It's blue. My favourite colour is blue. I just think it looks, for me, it just looks a bit plain.
It's a bit understated.
A bit plain. Oh dear! I see what you've done there, Carlos.
Oh yes,
very good. I love how everything we do is planned on this show.
I know. No, honestly, no, seriously, guys, it is a bit. You know, when you look at some of the liveries that some of the airlines have these days, like Air New Zealand and stuff, and you have some of the more kind of how shall I say, colourful paint schemes. They've gone for quite a how shall I say, clean, crisp look.
Corporate is another word. They've gone for a corporate look, I think. You know, but then sometimes less is more, isn't it? I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? Less is more. Does it need to have all the shouty thing? I mean, everything you need to know is there. I mean, does it need to have loud, shouty colours and all that kind of thing? At the end of the day,
I was going to say to Nev, cast your mind back, Nev, to years ago, and I think it was the 90s, mid-90s, when BA had their artistic tales. Yeah, I remember that didn't go down too well.
That wasn't very well received by the then Prime Minister, Mrs. Thatcher, I seem to recall.
Oh dear.
And it was a real split. You know, some people liked it and some people hated it.
Yes.
But I much prefer the current scheme, I must say. They've done a much better job of that.
Yeah, indeed. There we are.
So that is where we are going to bring the commercial news segment. So I'm just trying to read the chat room here, where we bring the commercial news segment to a close. We are what we got coming up next.
It's time for Nev's passenger experience, ladies and gentlemen.
That's it.
That's what's so very exciting. You read your show notes, Carlos. Come on.
I know. So we are going to hand things over to our illustrious Mr. Bounds. Come on, introduce our first one of 2018.
Yeah, well, this one nearly didn't happen because it was just before Christmas, and we don't really get much snow in the south of England at all. But this was the occasion where we did get a lot of snow, and I said to Mrs. Nev, well, shall we take the train? Shall we take the car? And we made sort of like 5 different changes of mind. We eventually got the car up the top of the drive, but where our road is, and we went very slowly to the station. We eventually got the train down there into London Docklands. But it was, this was the interview that nearly didn't happen. But we did get there, and we had a very nice lunch and seeing some old friends as well. So off we go. Let's have a listen. Hello and welcome to a brand new series of Nev's passenger experience for 2018. I'm looking forward to bringing you more travellers' tales again throughout this year. In the first interview of the new year, I'm speaking to a good friend of mine, Victor Hobbs. He and I worked together back in the mid-1980s, and he was actually my boss for 4 years or so during that time. Victor has travelled extensively on business and for leisure, and he is an American Airlines million-mile status holder. Although originally from the UK, he has spent over 23 years in the US, and so he thought it was about time he gained his American citizenship, which he did some 3 years ago. These days he lives in Southern California with his partner Joan, and I caught up with him in London Docklands when he visited the UK in the middle of December. I began by asking Victor which airline he used to traverse the pond this time around.
with Virgin Atlantic. Tends to be a very smooth experience, very well serviced in terms of the people on board. They look after you very well. And we always choose when we're coming over to the UK from the jolly old US of A to fly Virgin Atlantic upper class. The reason for doing that is because we've got somewhere to sleep coming over in their lie flat beds, which are very, very comfortable, even for me who tends not to sleep when I'm on those sort of planes. Experience generally is one of comfort. Yeah, it's a generally pleasing experience, and the experience in their lounge at LAX, if you can manage it, that you spend enough time there, is a lot of nice food, a lot of keen attention from the staff, and a few drinks. So that makes it a very pleasant experience altogether. And a pleasant experience is not what you get on an everyday experience of LAX.
Yes, I've heard that. Now, what about the domestic flying that you do on the West Coast? Who do you fly with, and where are you flying to and from?
Always Southwest Airlines. I happen to be a user of Southwest Airlines that enables me to have their booking capability for flyby with TSA, which makes the experience not too bad when initially boarding. Yeah, I have priority boarding, which enables me to get the first. With Southwest Airlines, boarding procedure is that you only get precedence if you are the name I can't remember at the moment, which I shall come back on shortly, where you get the first 15 boarding, so you've more or less got the whole plane to choose from when you get in, get the baggage in the upper compartment and settle yourself in. Subtly better than those in A30 through B and C60.
Now, you've done a lot of flying in your professional life as well. Tell me about your Concorde experience that you had.
Concorde experience, Nev, as you know, is one of the best experiences of my life in flying, as I was at that time, to many different parts of the world. And we happened to be, as a party, treated by one of our clients to a Concorde flight back from New York to London, and I think I can quite honestly say that was probably the best experience in the air in my life. First of all, you were treated were treated in New York to an interesting pre-flight lounge experience with a lot of gorgeous food and a lot of interesting wine, which I was convinced at the time was being meted out because you weren't actually going to like the flying experience, but it was actually the exact opposite of that. The flying experience was quite incredible. The first thing you get when you're seated in this long, pencil-thin, as it appears, cabin compared to some of the wide bodies that you're flying at that time, is when you're settled in and with the safety belts well in place, you get the captain in his best British accent, being British Airways, telling you you're likely to find the takeoff experience somewhat different to the wide bodies, in which you're more experienced by virtue of fact she's a little skittish on the runway, being obviously very fast, and that tends to make you buckle your seat just a little bit tighter. And he says, when we actually get wheels up, and he says, when we turn on the afterburners to do the ascent, it's like was like being pushed into the back of your seat as the thing accelerates at something like a 30 to 45 degree angle. An interesting start to the journey. I guess from that point onwards it becomes a little bit more normal until that you realize you're flying at something like 45, 46,000 feet, which is about 50% more height than you're used to, way above the clouds, obviously. And the sky is beginning to look above you, just a little bit like an inky blue experience. And it's at that point they're telling you that, I forget what it's actually called, it's not outer space, but inner space that you're now travelling in when you're levelling off at that 46,000 feet. There is absolutely no experience of speed. It's like a floating experience, and the only thing that's telling you how fast you're going and how fast hopefully the plane is going to is the tachometer. Is it a tachometer?
Well, we'll call it the speedometer, shall we?
Let's call it a speedometer. It's the thing that's telling you what speed to go, and I think it was called at the time a machometer. So it's reading out the Mach speed, which is your speed, as you know, compared to that of sound at ground level. And as the thing goes 1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, right up above the 2.0 to 2.3, and you realise you are now travelling at twice the speed of sound. But you certainly don't appear to be doing that.
I think when you're at that sort of height, and of course by the time they finish the cruise, I think it's nearly 60,000 feet, 1,350 miles an hour, Mach 2, and it's, you know, less than 3 hours to London, then you know that you're moving then.
Absolutely correct. You don't actually know that other than the Mach 1.2 up to 2.2 is all you're seeing, and there's actually nobody, even the captain, who's telling you what actual speed you're doing. It just seems to be incredibly smooth, and you seem to be gliding. And the only thing that you're seeing other than that glide is the fact, if you look down and if the clouds are in the right place down there at the time, you can actually see the curvature of the Earth. And you're thinking, I'm in outer space, which of course you're not, but you're in semi-space at the time, and that's quite a feeling.
Going from the fastest aircraft to the slowest aircraft, you've been a private pilot's license holder in the past. Have you kept that going?
Yeah, I was, and managed to, with some difficulty I had to add, but achieved my private license in the UK before I left for the US, and then unfortunately I let it drop, which was a sad thing to do because, well, two things. One, in the US, a private plane is very much more useful in getting from point to point easily, but still being within available distance of ground travel at the time. Therefore it becomes eminently more usable than it was in the UK. But now, of course, I'm way too old to afford the cost of private plane flying, because I'd have to pass this thing called a medical probably once every 3 months now. I'm that in age, but I'd love to be flying again.
And when you took your PPL, was that at Biggin Hill?
That was out of Biggin Hill, yeah, absolutely. One thing I was able to do at the time was to cheat some of the experiences necessary to pass the PPL, in that I started taking the radio license. So I was able to actually use the radio when I was blind flying, rather than doing the ground recognition that is mainly required in, one is supposed to do VFR totally when going, for example, the tests, etc., to get your PPL, whereas I was already able to use IFR, which made it a lot easier to pass, rather than having to recognise roads and rivers on the ground. An interesting experience altogether.
Just going back to commercial flying now, is flying a pleasure still, or is it just a necessary evil of getting from one place to another?
Tends to be the latter. a necessary evil, but not necessarily because of the flying experience itself. It's because of the outside the flying bit experience, which obviously from security perspectives make flying or getting to flying or part of the flying or getting to travelling by air experience less than a happy thing that it used to be.
Yes, it's par for the course though, unfortunately. We hear that a lot. Actually doing the flying bit's the straightforward bit, but getting on and off the plane is the more difficult.
I'm still able to experience, for example, when flying Southwest Airlines, the difference between a landing and an arrival, which tends to be less than satisfactory. But it's probably me most of the time judging possibly what I would have done as a lighter plane in those circumstances. Mine were mostly arrivals, I have to say. I still enjoy the flying experience itself, and actually still recognising some of what the guys up the front in the cockpit might be doing, because obviously the sizes of planes, etc., are very, very different indeed. But I can still experience some of what they might be having to look at, despite their total computer organisation of their flights nowadays. I can still what is going on to a degree there, which is interesting still.
Brilliant, Victor. Thanks ever so much for talking to me today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Neville.
Find this and other great shows at the Aviation Media Network.
thevoicesinyourhead.com. The Plain Talking UK podcast is a voluntary project that aims to keep you informed with the latest aviation-related stories from newswires across the globe.
Producing our content does cost money though. If you enjoy our show, why not help us keep on the air by making a donation towards the server and website hosting fees through PayPal. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated.
Are you an Amazon user? If so, why not do your shopping through the link on our website? There's no cost to yourself, and Amazon pay us a small referral fee on qualifying purchases.
To find out more about the show and to meet the team, take yourself to our website www.plaintalkinguk.com,
or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/plaintalkinguk, on Twitter via @plaintalkinguk, or get in touch via email on podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. Thanks for listening.
Flybe 5823, Trent Dane for 23 Manchester, Wizz Air 6X, climb flight level 210, direct to Bretlands Park. United 123, maintain 280 knots. London 2TME, turn right onto Bravo, link, 21 join Alpha, hold at Mora, Speedbird 472, LOC/DME, approach runway 27 left, follow the green stand 544.
That's enough air traffic control for today, Nat. Bedtime.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to fly a commercial passenger jet? Looked up at the sky and thought, I wish that was me? Well, now anyone has the chance to have a go at flying in a real aircraft simulator. NP Simulations and Flight Experience London, the only official Boeing licensed product of its kind in the UK, offer you the chance to fly anywhere in the world in their fixed base Boeing 737-800 flight simulator. And that's not all. Ground School London offers many different courses for the up-and-coming pilot looking for a start in aviation. With prices starting at just £109, the sky's the limit. So for the ultimate flight simulator experience, or engaging preparatory courses, including those for schools and colleges, check out the websites at www.london.flightexperience.co.uk and www.groundsschoollondon.com, or call on 020 300 40 616. NP Simulations. Fly your dreams.
Massive. Well done, Nev. Well done.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that was very nice to see the
the chap who I don't really see very often these days because he's, as I say, over on the West Coast. But it was great for him to come over to the UK, and we had a good time, and it was nice to talk about his flying.
I have to say, Niv, the only thing that worried me a little bit was that every single photograph that you sent me basically involved Vic with some kind of pint or wine glass in his hand.
Yes, this is getting from, and I was trying to get some pictures from him, but all I could find on his Facebook feed were those ones.
Fair enough. Okay,
but that actually does summarise how he lives his life.
Well, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
It's always good as well to hear some more Concorde stories, Nev.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
how we miss it. How we miss
Very
it.
much so. Yeah.
No, it's great that Vic had the opportunity to go on it, and his client was very generous and bought him a flight back to London on it. How about that? That's great.
Absolutely glorious.
So we're going to move on then to the next part of the show. We have got some military news.
I say, sit down, everyone.
Just
hold the phone.
To keep just to keep everyone happy. So if everyone's ready, we're going to do some military news.
Yeah, we're all ready to go here. Let's go.
So the first military news story this week, this one is on one of our fantastic papers here in the UK. This is the sun.co.uk, and the headline, well, for those of you who've been watching the show or listening to the show for the last few years, you'll know about pilots making interesting patterns on the various flight radar and other radar tracking apps.
Actually, I noticed in the show notes, Carlos, that you said this one was sent to us by Paul Tricker as well, actually, this story.
Yeah, this was sent in by listener Paul Tricker, who is local to us, actually, Paul is. And this headline is Plain Sight. Mavericks pilots epic Spitfire-shaped flight around England caught by eagle-eyed plane spotters on Flight Tracker. So an online flight tracker showed how a plane apparently followed an extremely neat, and when Matt puts the pictures up you'll see, an incredibly well placed, recognisable route in the shape of the World War II icon. Eagle-eyed plane spotters were left stunned when a pilot apparently flying an exact outline of a Spitfire was spotted on a Flight Radar 24 app. The aviator, who was said to be flying a Silence Twister stunt plane, was tracked online, making the eye-catching journey around southern England. An outline of the iconic Spitfire was drawn by a bold pilot. The plane appeared to follow an extremely neat and recognisable route in the shape of the World War II Spitfire, leaving some to question whether it really actually happened. The apparent homage to the Spitfire is even more special, as a Silence Twister is designed to look very similar to the Spitfire. It's a single seat tail dragger with the looks of the Spitfire. The alleged flight went to heights of 4,200 feet and went from 11:32 a.m. to 2:40 p.m. according to Flight Radar 24. The Supermarine Spitfire is a British icon and served in huge numbers in World War II. The route appeared to take the pilot over Felixstowe, Cambridge, Maidstone and Colchester, crossing several counties here in the UK. Last year, and we had a similar story which reported an RAF fighter pilot who left plane spotters shocked after tracing a 35-mile-long, well, we all know the story,
image
in the skies above, Lincolnshire. Family show.
Of course, show. Absolutely, yeah.
So the website Flight Radar 24 first traced the unorthodox flight path before Twitter account Civ Miller shared it and joked, "Is he trying to draw something there?" So in this particular story, the Typhoon took off from RAF Coningsby near Boston, Lincolnshire on the morning of August the 24th last year. It then undertook a series of turns over Lincolnshire and Norfolk and a loop over the Wash to complete the smutty outline. But no, you put the picture up on the feed there, Matt. I mean, that is, looking at here in the picture in front of me here on the story, that is one incredibly well drawn.
It is
Spitfire.
Absolutely. I mean, you could argue, obviously, that actually, if you've planned your route correctly and you stick to it to the letter, of course, you are by very nature going to end up with a very neat design if you follow it to letter. But I mean, that's some serious planning, isn't it, to make sure that you've got permission, as you know, because obviously you're going to be touching through several airfields and that kind of thing. I mean, it's a brilliant effort. If it is indeed genuine, it really is a brilliant
I think it was genuine, but I mean, he must have had, I'd imagine he would have had some sort of Garmin or a GPS navigation system on board the aircraft to be able to plot something that
accurate.
Correct.
Yeah, that accurate. Yeah.
What do you think, Nev?
I think he's done a very good job there, hasn't he?
It is. I mean, it's identifiable.
I don't want to spoil anything though, and I almost hate myself for saying it, but it almost looks too good, doesn't it? Really?
Yes. This is the issue, isn't it? But there we are. I guess yes, we're gonna end up having to do a retraction maybe next week because it's
almost certainly.
Yeah, it's been identified.
So moving on to the next story, and Matt, this one is for you.
Yes, this is on the Oxford Times. Oxfordtimes.co.uk is the website, and the headline: RAF Bryce Norton gets huge new aircraft hangar to help fleet fly global missions. So an aircraft hangar larger than 3 football pitches has been opened at RAF Bryce Norton to make it easier for servicemen to fly missions around the world. New Defence Minister Guto Bepp opened the facility yesterday, calling it phenomenally impressive. The hangar will be the new home for the Airbus A400M Atlas fleet, which recently took part in missions to the Caribbean after Hurricane Irma last autumn. The hangar covers 24,000 square metres, is 28 metres tall, and cost approximately £70 million. The base near Carterton currently has 18 Atlas aircraft, which are large enough to carry armoured vehicles, with 4 more due by 2020. Maintenance of the aircraft will now be carried out inside the hangar, making it easier and safer for personnel. Mr. Bepp, who was made Minister for Defence Procurement 3 weeks ago and was on his first visit to the RAF base, said that the hangar would be crucial in ensuring the fleet can work with many different scenarios. He added, "It is a state-of-the-art facility, and everything you'd expect from a country that takes defence seriously. Our commitment to Bryce Norton has been made very clear in this investment." So yes, a very good story for Bryce Norton there, and that's a massive building, isn't it? 24,000 square metres. That's just.
It's a very big site actually at Bryce. It's a very large facility, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mark Harvey, I think he sent us a piece from there, didn't he? Actually, it's they do an air show from there, don't they? If my memory serves.
Not from Bryce. No, it's
okay. They do a family day or something, don't they?
No. They excuse me. They obviously we have our one at RAF Fairford in Gloucestershire, where we have the obviously the big air show. But Bryce, if you remember, I think it was a few years back. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they done a series on TV all about Bryce Norton and what goes on there.
Yeah, that's right. It was a great series actually, wasn't it? I must see if I can find that somewhere. But yeah, there's good, nicely shot actually. Some very good stuff. There's a lot of movements coming out of there for the troops that are going overseas and all sorts of other operations. Yeah. Great.
Actually, Matt, a lot of the stuff that comes over us here comes in and out of Bryce Norton. So a lot of the tankers, the big refueling tankers, come out of Bryce Norton.
Very good.
So moving on to the last one, Nev, for you. This one is regarding I'd say an iconic relic.
It is, yeah, and it's from a strange website actually. It's from popularmechanics.com, and it's all about the US Air Force, who are going to buy new wings for aging A-10 Warthogs that risked a one-way trip to the boneyard. The Air Force has made clear its intention to keep the A-10 flying after concerns surfaced that the service
surfaced that the service was taking advantage of the issue to get rid of the iconic close air support plane. Earlier this month, a Pentagon official in charge of the A-10 program announced an effort to re-wing 110 of the jets. Was not going to happen. Of the 280 A-10s still in US Air Force service, 173 have received new wings to keep them flying into the 2030s. The original re-winging contract with Boeing was for 242 sets of wings, but the contract ended when it was no longer cost effective for the company, and the Boeing production line is closing later this year. That left at least 110 A-10s high and dry without new wings, a state that threatened to ground them for good unless a solution was found, reducing the number of A-10 squadrons from 9 to 6. The Air Force focused on getting the F-35A Joint Strike Fighter up and running, didn't include a new wing contract in its 2018 budget. Congress, however, added funding a new wing assembly line and 4 new wings to get it warmed up. Now the Air Force is committed to buying more wings, according to Dodie Buzz, General Mike Holmes, the head of the Air Force's Air Combat Command, which was announced last week at a Washington, D.C. think tank, that the service will buy more wings beyond the initial 4. Exactly how many wings will depend on a Department of Defense decision and the Air Force's work with Congress. The US Air Force has tried to retire the A-10 since the 1991 Persian Gulf War, allocating its mission to the F-16 and now the F-35A. Retiring the A-10 would free up $4 billion over 5 years, enough to fund about 44 F-35As, as well as free up 9 squadrons of personnel who could be reassigned to other projects. The A-10's popularity with the public, ground troops who receive support in Iraq and Afghanistan, and Congress have repeatedly saved it from an early retirement. Critics outside the service believe that the F-35A is ill-suited to replace the A-10 and that no other plane has the firepower, protection and performance characteristics that make it a viable replacement. The F-35A lacks the GAU-8, a 30mm gun for close air support missions, the largest number of hard points for carrying a variety of ordnance, and the armour and redundant systems to keep it flying after a hit. So that's some good news, isn't it? I see some the old planes getting re-winged and being put back in service.
Now, I can remember many years ago, and this is going back quite a few years, when I was considerably younger than I am now, going to RAF Bentwars here in the UK to their open family days. They used to have at RAF Bentwars because the A-10 was based there for quite a few years at RAF Bentwars, and seeing these in action doing the flights and the air displays, and they were some pretty. I mean, I think even people who are not military aviation fans or have a lot of knowledge of military aircraft will know instantly the A-10 by just the look of this particular aircraft, what it looks like. But also bear in mind, we're talking about this aircraft obviously being re-winged. This aircraft first entered service in 1977.
Wow.
Good Lord.
Gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah, so it's fairly old. Actually, and on that note as well, there is a really good for the military aviation enthusiasts here in the UK. There is a incredibly good museum at the Bentwaters Cold War Museum at RAF Bentwaters here in the UK, and they've got quite a few static aircraft on display on the old base site as well. And yeah, it's a really great museum to go and visit. So. There we go. Bit of information there.
Very good. Well done. I'm impressed.
I know.
Yes. Actually, we must have our chat about what we're going to have, aren't we? Must have our chat about what air shows we're going to visit. Actually, it's. I think Farnborough's a must for me personally.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad I managed to terminate the conversation.
Sorry, I'm getting rid of my.
Gone well, hasn't it?
Yeah, hasn't it? Yes, never mind. Well, that just leaves us with one job then, and that is to wrap up the show, ladies and gentlemen. To get in touch with the show, you have several ways to do that, of course. Don't forget then our wonderful website that actually, it's probably about time I sat down and gave it a revamp, isn't it? But not before I've done Carlos's website first. But anyway,
yes.
this is so it's plaintalkinguk.com is the website. You'll find us on Facebook at facebook.com/plaintalkinguk. And of course, if you want to get hold of us on Twitter, our Twitter handle is at Plain Talking UK. Don't forget, if you want to send in your audio feedback, please do so. We're desperate to get some feedback from you. We love to hear your voice because it's a way of breaking things up. It is podcast at plaintalkinguk.com. That's podcast at plaintalkinguk.com.
And don't forget, if you want to become a Patreon of the show, you can do that via the website as well. We very much love all our donators to the show who help to push everything along as it does at the moment, and to keep things running along. And if you want to become a patron of the show or donate to the show, you can do that via the website, and the links are all there. And also, don't forget, if you want to treat yourself as well to a T-shirt. Matt, they can be found on the website as well?
That's right, yes, it's on the same place. So it is, go to www.plaintalkinguk.com, and there is a special button on the website called Store, and in there you will find, he says, waiting for the page to load, you will find a certain brewing expert there modelling our T-shirts for us. So that's Matt Caton there. He's modelling the fabulous good quality T-shirts, and they are good quality, are they not, Nev? They're excellent T-shirts.
Oh yeah, they are. Very nice.
Yeah, I must say I am rather a fan of our shirt that is not available on the website. I do quite like those. That they are really nice. Also, actually, guys, seriously, if you are not in a position to perhaps financially assist us with the show, don't forget, if you use the Amazon link on our website, by just buying things from Amazon, you can actually help contribute towards the running cost of the show, because anything that you buy through that link, we get a small advertising referral fee from Amazon, which all helps towards it's usually spent on goods that mean otherwise we'd have to do a walk of shame to Maplin, does it not? But there we are. Absolutely.
I use that link all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So do I. But there we are. All part of the fun. I think that's it, boys and girls. We are done.
Yes, so that is where we are going to bring episode number 202 to a close of the Plain Talking UK podcast. So it just leaves me to say a massive thank you to everyone who has joined us in the live chat room in YouTube tonight for the show. Massive thanks to you guys for joining us and taking time out of your Friday evening. And also, let's not forget as well, everyone who downloads the show through iTunes and all the various podcast downloading places across the globe. Thanks to you for downloading the show each week.
Yeah, we are really appreciative. Thanks very much, guys, from all of us across the world. So I'm here in Windsor, Nev is in Buckinghamshire, Carlos is in boring old PTUK Towers. From all of us here, it is time to say goodbye. Say goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.